Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the home of Jackie and Mary Spillane here in Mullinahorna. We are here tonight to pay a very special tribute to a good friend and a great neighbour in Patrick Spillane and his wife Henny. Patrick retired from the forestry after 35 years, and it's from his son's home that we bring you this musical tribute tonight, from members of his family and all his neighbours. We hope you will enjoy this unique occasion. And without further ado, we'll start now with one part of the half set by his 4 grandchildren, Siobhan Spillane and Deirdre, and Joanne Spillane and Mary Catherine. Now, the music at the introduction and for the half set was provided by John Coakley. John will also play during the night for any other dancers and instruments if he wants. Now, Patrick will reminisce with us now on his days in the forestry. Now, Patrick, 35 years ago, afforestation in this area was in its infancy. Now, tell us about the early trees and the way things were done.
Well, the early part of the 35 years ago, it was manual labour. The trees are probably about the same. Pine and spruce, maybe general plants all over. But the work, of course, was about harder than it used to be. And then, so then had the first one we started in 52. When I started in 52, I did chance 2 jobs the same army. From the council of the forestry. Then I educated the forestry link.
Was there better money in the forestry than the county council?
No. It was the presentation of the council.
Did you have any machinery now in the early days?
No, system car and system machine in 52 and 53, not down here. They were from Fiddler and Derry, but they were a rare thing down here. Machine landed in 54. I worked up Musher in 52 and 53, and there Danny Johnson in 54. I got machine on Christmas week of 54.
And who showed you how to plant? You know, in the
you see, McComb and Ballavourne were one of the things. They were not obsessed as McComb to Bob going as Gindab. Gindab stretched all the way from Ranagusty for way back in near Rannery, out as far as Anniganny. And John Brain came from Clondalk. He worked in Gindab forestry that day, and he came from Clondalk to Munster to show us how to do it. There were 6 of us up Munster that day. The first morning, that was in July.
And who was your first forester?
Well, he was Tom Fall, he was Nelson Clare, he was back in Gindab. He lived down in, he was a down in McComb.
Now, the weather then, did you have any hut like you had?
Oh, no hot at all, no. But we had a car covering, the same as the cover you see in a lorry today, the same thing. We're standing with 3 sticks. 3 sticks about 10 feet high. And put another stick up against them and a tripod, otherwise that's the sort of thing it was.
And what kind of pay did you get for the first week?
$3.89 was the pay. for home because the insurance gentleman and you always pay top and all that again if we want to full week to the minister for I don't know, but they will know what to start with any no, they were for all what to start.
Something similar to the here.
Yeah.
Where did you walk before we went to the forest there?
Well, I came from the council, from Basel. The county council was quite on top of that time. That was the last year of top. Before that, there were years and years spent in the bogs up to 62. So John been out in about the second week of June. So I was forest again in July.
And was there much of a difference in the pay in the council and the forestry? How were you getting in the council?
Well, there was, I didn't spend a whole lot of time, but the council, I worked by Sutton's, one and tuppence an hour. Yeah, I worked up by Cobbler up above here, Senator Coakley, Macroom, up above in the livestock for one and tuppence an hour. You see, there was no, the council paid something around, something over £4 a week at that time. But in which time, you could go to Basel for a whole week, you maybe get half year's pay. There was no weekend with the council from Basel. There was no weekend there.
And when did you become a timekeeper then for the forestry?
No, in 54, and then again in 54. Yeah.
No, I believe you had a house as well. That's why she houses that time in the...
Oh, that was the only transport there with houses.
Yeah. There
was sort of back, Tommy Barn, he brought the first lorry trees to Mushel. About 22, 18,000 I think he put into the old car, pony and car he had. And you know, from the road up to the top, because we were just pulling, there was about 14 minutes at the time. Because we thought we'd all push the car, but there was about 2 pushing forward and 12 pulling backwards. We got another house again. We got only one shot in that car. And then Jenny George. Yeah.
And you had, someone said you had parties in the forestry too at Christmas.
Only Christmas, yeah. If you don't
in the actual forestry?
Oh yes, above Jackie City, but with the whole self in Jackie City.
Yeah.
We came in before Jackie was in marriage and gone out when we got into it. So we had a party, we used to have a party up there, and we spent 3 years of fun and again.
And what kind of a party? What we
I don't know, we say no, get down and sit somewhere fair in here. Pass on.
Yeah?
And to supply the cake.
And what about the bottles?
Oh, there was the bottles. The bottles were scarce.
Oh, there.
No, there were bottles were scarce. Not a whole lot of money down the bottle.
Ah. No, you used to fire patrol as well. You used to get paid for that.
Oh, you will pay for fire patrol to the damn thing to do down the army. That's the answer. You can go anywhere. It was time and a quarter for fire patrol. And
you used to have to bring the guards, or did you have to notify the
guards?
We
did. We always should notify the guards. You may pay it out to the guards. Come down north here. So we know for near the first day that was up for you. Even if it was button, the guards, you come to talk about that button before the minister would pay you. But
where was the biggest fire? Like
up and again here one time we had a fire.
Yeah, how long ago?
The Royal Land guards came in and started in Donovan. I think people standing came through. Together. The sergeant's office caught in here. They couldn't stop fire. But the fire, back there, he took fire, he had to couldn't keep, you know.
Yeah.
And we were gone away about 50 or 60, maybe 100 yards further on. And the sergeant caught us inside it. And the young was showed to the sergeant to get his caught with burning.
Yeah.
So the sergeant had the jury in yours. From that quenching the fire. And the sergeant said, you're paid, so we're not paid at all. When he came down the evening, about 7 o'clock, he couldn't see it. No, court went to barrack.
Did you walk in the north side?
Oh, I did, yeah. I went there and when that opened in 60. I didn't know if that right. That's also got the good thing, he said that that would happen, half of that young detectives under the department didn't catch the whole lot, he said.
Yeah. Where did you spend the bulk of your time, like what forest did you sing?
And again in Carrigalle.
Now, in the early days, when you were a ganger, how many men had you under your command?
Up and again, 21 men during the famine. Came up and again. The forest of that, he had 88 men from around the Gusty, up and again, he had 88 men. All he had with the boys. I didn't test all the way up to the end, that double the amount of forest to the year. One thing to the men. That's just enormous.
So when you finished, you had, how many had you?
One. Tommy Bradley. That's all. I had Gerald Dunham for a couple months training, that's all. No more.
Now, when you were singing Catholic, how could the forest at the moment create more enjoyment if a different direction was taken? How would you create more enjoyment now in the forest? What would you do with them?
Well, the folk would have the machinery in the first place off. We bought the world, the machines, they were absolutely useless. Things that wouldn't go at all, what I want them to go. There were forts and majors and forts and tractors and Highland bears and all these things. They were all for solid ground. When they went into the bog and into the forest, they just sat down and said, that's what we did. That was out north, but we got north of Dublin for us. And natural enough, when the tractor went down, what would you do with it?
And they're still there?
They're dumped a lot of stuff there. Dumped there, the welcome because they're more good. No. I said they were too slow and moving. The forest were too slow.
Would you see any future in forest?
That's just going down, there is a future in it. When probably new crowd takes over, when half the mother level gone.
You mean private forest stations?
No, the forestry holds the forestry all the way. But the world of staff there that have got to go on the top rank above. You know, they dictate the whole thing from the top down. So you have to answer about 4 different letters for the sake of giving one straight answer to some letters, you know, but I got 4 different people. That's where all the time is wasted. But I'd say that forestry would come up. That's my opinion about it. So this thing that they have now, this thingy, private thing, that they do stuff there. I'd say it should be, But then forestry itself gets very, very scarce. The forestry grown, the forestry people, it probably gets very scarce.
Yes, you can be a too, I suppose.
I'd say when we did peak, I'd say if I want to be steady, a couple of years ago, it would have been better. You know, it is way down. I suppose it's way down. Cut on the phone now, 250, 350.
But overall, you did enjoy your couple of
I did enjoy it, all right. It was a great old crack. Something happening every day. I don't know, but I don't know, but you hear the news of the world. Of course, the best you don't run enough. You hear the whole world.
You have the town news and all there.
There was 88 men there, we taken and we started a preacher over, you know. We take a man came into, even the tinker. Yeah. He landed up one morning, around the first week in March, in the February. Cold, he said, fucking cold. He sat into his car and stuck out the road out when he never sent down to town again.
That's the last time.
That's the last time. He lived down top of him. He lived inside there at the Dick Jones in Masseytown. They bought that house at the council or someone bought it for him. Just bought it for that I could hold him up to the nursery. Cold. What a gang we had.
Now we'll have a song from Spillane, and after that I think we might have a story from Neily. An old man was sitting at a table one day, writing a letter to pass time away. His little granddaughter climbed up on his knee, saying, won't you please write a letter for me? Now what shall I say on this letter, I pray? Tell Mommy I miss her since she went away, and I'm coming to see her real soon, I hope. She took with the big lump of rose in her throat. Tell Mommy I love her, the little girl said. And I pray every evening before I go to bed that God up in heaven will answer my prayer and take me to live with my mommy up there. She sealed it and wrote on that big envelope, to God up in heaven you'll get this, I hope. She stamped it and handed it to her to mail. Her big eyes were shining, her little face pale. She was crossing the street to the box all the way, and when she stepped out, never looked either way. A big motor hit her and sped away fast. The little girl's prayers had been answered at last. The postman was passing and picked up the note, addressed to the master, and these words he spoke. Straight up into heaven this letter did go. She is happy up there with her mommy, I know. Now, Neily.
Well, there were a lot of people that went to America, that settled down there, and they did well. Of course, there were others, they only went there to see the time. But Mick the Fiddler, he helped the brother and the brother's wife, Mal Phil, to set the Spillanes on the high field before he went. He was home again in time for the second spray. Here he said the place over didn't agree with it, and when he came home, he didn't know anyone. Well, he had a crease in his trousers that would shave a gooseberry for you. And the tie he was wearing, well, I wouldn't like any bull to see it. He didn't know anyone, not even those that were in the same book with him going to school. And when he went into the kitchen, he was taken between a back Maria by what he saw sitting up in the hob near the fire. Say, Moll, he said, what's this long-tailed bugger in the corner? We should mix the she, so you don't know the cat. But of all the people that ever yet came home from America, Mick the Fiddler gave the best value, because he answered all questions appertaining to the nature of New York. Signs by, the house used to be full every night. And the brother and the brother's wife, Mal Phil, oh, pusses in him. Couldn't go to bed until all hours. And another thing, you see, Mal Phil, she was very house proud. Oh, the kitchen was shiny. Sure, you could nearly eat off the floor. And it killed her to see all of us traipsing in every night, bringing in all the mud of the locality in our boots. Well, Mick's first night home, anyway, he was explaining all about the boat going over. And he said that they must have saved the company a fortune in food, because he said it was 4 days before they could keep anything down. Well, at that time, he said all immigrant boats had to pull into Ellis Island in New York Harbour, where you had to undergo a thorough examination. Oh, he said, a newspaper would be placed in front of you and you'd be expected to read a skein out of it. Oh, begad, Mick said there were all good scholars going over those days, but then again, he said, you might meet the odd man that wouldn't know bee from a bull's foot up in the gable of a house. Well, he said a few questions might be put to him to see how the talk was boiling. He might be asked to explain a cloud or what was a mountain. Mick said that one of the things from Turin Cahill, he made a very poor fist at the reading, and the American said to him, he said, could you tell me, he said, what a lake is? Oh, begad, I could say, he said, sure a lake, he said, is a hole and darts of a kittle. But I'll never forget one night, as long as I live, we were over there, and Mick was on his favourite subject, skyscrapers. And there was this man there, and he was in Cork sometime, and he said to Mick, I'd no nose to see, would those skyscrapers, he said, be as tall as the spires of St. Finbar's Cathedral in Cork. God help your head, Mick said. They'd go down that far, he said, in New York before they'd ever think of going up. And they go up as high, he said, that they had to take the brick off the chimney of one of those buildings to let the moon pass. And they go up so quick, he said, himself was going to work one morning, and they were digging the foundations for one. And when he was coming home that evening, he said, the tenants were being evicted for non-payment of rent. Well, that they put the gobans here and the round toes and the halfpenny place. But, well, there were Brasners there then. They had, there were so many questions put to Mick about the topography of New York that he decided that he'd draw a map of it. Well, they couldn't get any bit of paper big enough in the house, so he put a coating of ashes in the flag of the fire, and then with the top of Dim Donovan's walking stick, he drew the outline of the island of Manhattan. 10 miles long, Mick said, and 3 miles wide, bought by the Dutch from the Red Indians for less than $50. Don't you think he said that? But there were bargains going in those days too. Then he said he drew all the avenues running north and south and the streets running across. And he said the distance between 2 streets was called a block. And that there were about 8 blocks to the mile. That's no, if you could believe him. And there was this little man there, he said, and I know, Sissy, could you tell me where in the middle of all that ashes, he said, would my sister Hannah be living? Have you got her address, Mick said. I have, Sissy. 'Tis 240, he said, West 84th Street. Right, says Mick, pointing down with his walking stick, between Amsterdam and Broadway, he said, that's where she hangs out. God knows, you know, Mick said, that's true for her, because I think she works in a laundry. Well, the cat hopped up on the hob and she began to wash her front. And then she arched up her back and she opened her mouth wide, you swear she was laughing. And the dog was lying below on the floor, between down from the ashes of Mick's nap. Sure, if you only knew it, half of him was inside in the Hudson. Well, there were so many, there were Brosnans there then, they had brothers in the Bronx. And there were Sheehans there, they had sisters in Staten Island. There were Kjos there then, they had cousins in the Queens. Not to mind those that had relations in Brooklyn, Yonkers and the Jersey Shore. Well, it was like a pantomime. They all wanted to know where their people were living. But Mick told them that as all these places, he said, were outside the island of Manhattan, he said, up the Hudson, he said, and down the bay, turning to Coney and Rockaway. The chairs then had to be pushed back and more ashes brought out to add to the map. And during all this activity, the cat hopped off the hob and marched down 5th Avenue. You think to St. Patrick's Day? Well, we began to call the cat because we were afraid he'd take the ashes in his pads around the house. And of course, when the dog heard us calling the cat, he got up and thinking, of course, he was being left out of something, he walked over and he sat down in the middle of the Bronx. And of course, Mick then knew that the fat was in the fire, and he began to call the dog, and he said, says, that's the doggy, that's the doggy. Well, the dog, of course, like he kind of half a fool of a sheepdog. To show his friendship, he began to send his tail around like a propeller, shoveling up all the ashes until you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And out of this dense fog came Moll filled with the sweeping brush. And I being the nearest to her, I got the first crack of it. I'll give you the Bronx, she said, and I'll give you Chinatown. Well, the same as if she was the mounted police, she cleared the kitchen. And we all spilled out the front door like dirty water out of a bucket, bringing to an abrupt ending Mick the Fiddler's graphic description of the island of Manhattan in the state of New York in the continent of America. Thank you.
And now we'll have a song from Deirdre and Government Lines, Marcella Kelleher and Joanne Spillane.
Join your hands together, join your hands together, let's build bridges for the world. If we listen to the stories, we'll go strong in glory. Learn to communicate, touch, see and hear. A little boy sat at the edge of his bed. He didn't say anything, he just cried instead. The old woman noticed the warmth of his tears as they fell on her face. Now the meaning was clear. Join your hands together. she's lovely, and stroke her grey hair. Join your hands together, join your hands together, let's build bridges for the world. If we listen to the story, we'll grow strong in glory, learn to communicate, touch, see and hear. Join your hands together, join your hands together, let's build bridges for the world. If we listen to the story, we'll grow strong in glory, learn to communicate, touch, see and hear.
Now Neily Coakley will dance a cobbler's jig and John Coakley will play for him. Now we have a little song from Spillane now.
Look at me, I'm climbing up a ladder, and I'm halfway up, I'm reaching for the stars. Now I don't have time to sing, no time for laughter. There's a voice inside my head, keeps singing loud. Let it swing, let it rock and roll. Let it swing, let the music take control. Oh, hi, oh. Let it swing, let it rock and roll. There's a guy in top who says he's mine forever. Got the world and everything, that's for the best. Now he don't say much unless there's room for talking. There's a sign above the door and this it says, let it swing, let it rock and roll. Let it swing, let the music take control. Oh, hi, oh, let it swing, let it rock and roll.
Now Governor Lyons will play a couple of tunes for us, Governor. All right. Now we'll have Teresa, Martina and Mary Catherine to sing in a country churchyard.
In a country churchyard there's a preacher with his people gathered all around to join a man and woman. Spring is here and turtle doves are swinging round the steeple. Bees are in the flowers, they're growing in the graveyard and over the hills where the river meets the mills. A lovely girl is coming down to give her hand upon her wedding day. Dressed in silk and white and wearing flowers in her hair. Music as she walks slowly to the altar, picking up the Bible as the preacher turns towards her. Do you take this man to be your wedded husband, to honor and love in the eyes of God above? Now let the people sing with me these words that live forever in our hearts. Let your love shine on, for we are the stars in the sky. Let your love shine on until the day you die. You die away. Many years have fallen on that golden country morning. Graveyards overgrown, the church lies in ruins. Ivy on the walls and ravens floating round above me. As I make my way towards the last remaining headstone, I fall to my knees, read the lines between the reeds, and suddenly it seems to me these words that live forever in our hearts. Let your love shine on, for we are the stars in the sky. Let your love shine on until the day you die. You die away.
There we go. And now we'll have the four Spillane children again. They'll dance a slide. And now we'll have a song from Michael Deneen, the only one of Patrick's grandchildren that's a Kerryman. So he's going to sing about four little ducks.
Five little ducks went swimming one day over the pond and far away. Mother duck said quack, 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 quack. Four little ducks came back. Four little ducks came swimming one day over over the pond and far away. Mother duck said quack, 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 quack. 3 little ducks came back. 3 little ducks went swimming one day over the pond and far away. Mother duck said quack, 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 quack. 2 little ducks came back. 2 little ducks went swimming one day over the pond and far away. Mother duck said quack, 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 quack. 1 little duck went swimming one day over the pond and far away. Mother duck quack, said quack, quack. 5 little ducks came swimming back.
Now we'll have a song from John Manny. This song is a local song written by an Englishman who bought a cottage in Rahalisk, and he liked the locality so much that he makes songs about the place. And John is going to sing one now about Ballinagree.
They sing songs of the Shannon and the gently flowing Lee, and how the graceful mounts of morn slope gently to the sea. Oft times I've heard the singers boast Killarney's lakes so rare, but list, my friends, I'll take you to a spot that's just as fair. A spot beyond the winding road that leads from Massey town onward through the wooded lanes, where songs of wild birds sound. Perchance you'll see a signpost there, inscribed for all to see. Follow its direction to a place called Ballinagree. An exile's heart is yearning for days that used to be, those happy days of childhood around dear Ballinagree. O rising land to Rahalisk, the gentle Lowie flows, amidst the bog and pasture land, its winding water flows, where oft I've heard the curlew warn the distant approach of morn, and Mother Nature wakes her sons to greet the early dawn. An exile's heart is yearning for days that used to be, those happy days of childhood around dear Ballinagree. Old Mushroom Mountain boasts a pride the likes I never saw. It stands alone, a precious gem, the Mount of Mushroom Moor. In rapture 'neath a veil of lace that floats from far o'er the sea, and from its misty heathered slopes you can see dear Ballinagree.
a townland once immortalized. Its pride bestirs me still, where once a lad was reared and loved, our own dear Teddy Quill. For every joy that entwines my heart, none finer you'll agree than the rustic fells and pasture lands around dear Ballinagree. An exile's heart is yearning for days that used to be, those happy days of childhood around dear Ballinagree. Oft times I've wandered o'er the seas to many a distant land. I felt the sun's warm gentle rays upon a foreign strand. Oft times an exile's thoughts return to kindred far o'er the sea, and friends of youth in bygone days around dear Ballinagree. An exile's heart is yearning for days that used to be, those happy days of childhood around dear Ballinagree.
Now, Patrick was very active in the social life of Ahina Parish all his life, and he'll tell us now something about what he used to do. He used to act in a lot of plays. Can you remember any of the plays you were in?
Oh, I can think of some good plays. It was, plays really began sometime around 1946. Around 46. The first play we ever see was up in Carrigilla School by Canaway. It was directed by Ty Neily in Carrigilla. Professor Tim, that was the first thing we saw. So from there on, Father Foley got the idea of starting the off plays, and I think it was around 46 when we started. We did a lot of plays.
Would you get good crowds in the halls that time?
Oh,
Right,
you
for
would
a
get
play?
good crowds. Oh, you would, yeah. It was in Lynch, you would get a big crowd. If we had to go to Lynch, you would get good crowds. But we had only in the schools here. They were all for parish funds. We started, everything was for parish funds. But we used to go out and around the country. You would get big crowds. Big crowds always came to see us. I don't think we ever came. We never made money, but we never came home smashed either. That's what we're talking about. No.
They were very enjoyable, though. There was a great camaraderie among
different type of atmosphere
Yeah,
altogether
yeah.
as compared with the team today. Different altogether.
And the tops of the town, Ahina did 2 tops of the towns. You were involved
We
in them?
did, yeah. I was there too. Yeah, we were beaten last round there. We shouldn't have been beaten at all the last round in reality. I'd say that was a hooful. I'd say a pure hooful that was Simish Diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you were also a pioneer, and you were all your life a pioneer.
Oh, I'm there since 42, I think, down in the convent in Macroom. I became a pioneer. I joined up there below.
And did you ever miss the old drop of the crater?
No, God, no. I don't think it's necessary at all.
You would abolish it all if you had a
Well,
chance.
I don't think it's as necessary as the way that it's consumed in here.
I suppose it is. Now, the carnival in Ballinagree, the Ahina Carnival, when it came to Ballinagree first, that's a good few years ago, you were involved with that.
It was a hectic time, surely. Huh? Way back in 72.
That's right.
I got it was a hectic thing to think of a big carnival in Ballinagree and big marquee. Made money though.
It did, and it drew crowds.
And it drew crowds. It was packed one night and a couple thousand people. people thought that the whole thing came in.
But the music was different too. You got, you know.
There were different type of people.
You had.
Yeah. There wasn't all that much drinking involved at that time as there is today at all. You know, and the old lounge bars were coming up. There weren't.
There was more dance halls. Like
there was, yeah, and more music.
You were also in the FCA.
God, yes.
Yeah, when did
I've been 34 years in the FCA.
When did you join? That must have been...
Well, way back in 48 or 9, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that was a hectic life.
I suppose the shoes and the boots and the coats and everything.
That's how we had.
They came in for your Sunday.
Oh, they were worth the world. Oh, God, they were worth the world. Yeah.
They shot a lot of men.
They did, yeah. Because we one night in Bandagree, and the lad Mercy Pope, he was there. He was a member too of the staff.
Yeah.
But any of the captain came from Bandon, Captain McGilligan. It was he had probably 3 or 4 suits already given to Pope, and then I went the amount of shoes because they were all just straight from hunting the salmon in the river, poaching. Just night came, so he asked for another pair of boots, and he, well, I have nothing more to give you, he said, except I give you the car, he said.
They were great days.
Yeah, they were gas times. Yeah.
What rank you were
promoted,
weren't you, up the rank you finished?
I was sergeant there to finish up with. I was, yeah. It was. I travelled up as far as Templemore. I did guard duty in Templemore in 54. Kilworth for my Collinsville Barrack in the early 50s.
That was the fortnight holidays during the year.
It's been 3 weeks there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a gas place to be.
It was hard work too, training young recruits.
Yeah, taking my isn't there alright in North Europe. We'd get back sometime in here, so we'd be always back for the dinner if at all possible. And the old grub was bad at the time. Kilworth put the tin hat in it. For my was a gentleman's place, and for my barracks are out in the road. Best barracks in the country for my.
Yeah.
Kilworth
There's no FCA now, is there?
No, very, very little. I think they're giving free buses now in Dublin, free passes in the bus to see if they're getting if you out to join up. You see, they're in the paper.
Yeah, the young people now, I suppose, don't want to...
No, there's no money for them. No. There was money there right at him because the old wages out the country were bad. We were who got it. But when money got plentiful and wages got good, forget about the FC and the army.
Now, as we're so near St. John's Well here, the day of the Pattern, that used to be a great day too.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Used to be dances here in this house.
There was always a dance here to finish off the day.
Yeah.
This is the usual place for it.
This was Jackie's grandfather, Johnny Buckley.
Yeah. And there was a good platform up there in Musher. There was a timber one there before the concrete one was put in. There would be big crowds there.
It is a pity that it died away, you know.
You know, tried that place outside took it over, but that place never existed. It's only... in reality, it was never there. There was nothing there in my time, only white iron tree, no more. That's all. But you build up all these places, you build them all up and...
It is a pity to let tradition like that die down, though. Who built the platform then? There was a cement platform up there in Musher, eh?
There was, no, tin was put up that there one summer. You know, it cost us about £5 a man, I think. That was much we had at the time in here. About, either argue about that over, say that the Holy Well out there, some says it shouldn't be there, that is up on top of the hill, to the more says down there, but officially as far as any map in the country is concerned, it is on top of the hill, the Holy Well is in here. It's up there, St. John's Well.
So that was the pilgrimages used to go up there?
They used, yeah.
St. John's Day, eh?
Yeah, my grandfather used to take the porter up there in his team, above that.
To the top of the hill?
Up the top of the hill. So I'd be thinking that would be ridiculous to keg the porter up the top of the hill if there was a Holy Well outside and the side of the hill.
But it was more of a pilgrimage to climb the hill.
It was, there was prayers and something to be said about it.
But should they used to give tea and everything below in the road behind here at St. John's Well? They used to have tea then and
that's years ago. There was porter by people that they wouldn't have a strong crew enough that he'd take up the kegs up the top of the hill. You know, you would get drink down the road. Katie MacDonald in town, she was got to the top for a long, long time, but in later life she only back there where the platform is now.
And they'd come down the hill then and dance?
Dance away then, with platform below.
And who used to play, eh?
I remember Sir Robert House played a lot of his time there. In the later time, Henry was played there. A lot of people know band. They were all musicians out there, our band, and all played it.
A lot of courting, I suppose, done around them places.
Work St. John's Day was the principal day up here, all right. fair play to it.
Matchmaking.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But I had no argument about the matchmaking, but yeah, there was. Oh, yeah, the blessed the cross up above, we erected a cross to it anyway.
Is that still there?
There's the pathway there, I suppose. The junction and all the rest there.
But it was a Hena parish did that, wasn't it? Put the cross on top
It was, yeah, but anyway, we advertised it, of course, and we advertised that there'd be a dance to follow after the blessed the cross.
Yeah.
So the old canon of Macomb, he went mad. He now he lost his senses. So there was no blessing, but it should be blessed anyway before the end of the year came.
Yeah.
While the marrying year was there. It was 1950.
Yes.
Yeah. We got the parish priest came and our Father O'Driscoll was there at the time, with the curate. Huh?
They had to give a promise.
Was the Father Haggerty?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they had to give a promise. Yeah. And they had to promise to dance no more.
No, I danced that then. This was Christmas Eve. What the Sunday before Christmas Eve, I think. No, I danced that then. Yeah. There was no other in here.
Yeah.
What did you say? Was it Father? I don't know. I suppose it was Father Sheehan that was there at the time, a parish priest and Father O'Driscoll. I suppose them two were there. So I don't know, that was the boat into that carrying up there and here. They opened up this, outside the hallway outside the city. Then I danced outside there, of course.
That was a Wilful Watts, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Someone was buying it. No, I danced outside there. There never was a dance there.
No.
Well, I suppose that's more sensitive than the carry-on we had in one way. That's more prayers attached to it, yeah.
She's more reverent, like.
Well, there's more prayers attached to it. Of course, the stations across set that thing off. But
That's lovely, all
there's somebody
right.
booked it there, that set it off completely.
Well, now I have a very sad story to tell you. And it is all about a girl called Sonia Snell, to whom an accident befell. An accident, as may be seen, but embarrassing in the extreme. It happened, as it does to many, that Sonia went to spend a penny, and entering with unconscious grace the properly appointed place, there behind the railway station she sat in silent meditation. Unfortunately, unacquainted, the seat had recently been painted. Too late did Sonia realize her inability to rise, and though she struggled, pulled and yelled, she found that she had been firmly held. At last she cried in mournful shout, "Oh, please, someone come and get me out." A crowd stood round and feebly sniggered. A signal man said, "I'll be jiggered." "Go blimey," said an ancient porter, "we ought to soak her off with water." But the station master and his staff, they were most polite, and they didn't laugh. They tugged at Sonia's hands and feet, but couldn't shift her off the seat. Then a carpenter arrived at last, and finding Sonia still stuck fast, remarked, "I know what I'll do," and he quickly sawed the seat in two. Sonia arose, only to find she had a wooden halo on her behind. But an ambulance drove down the street and bore her off complete with seat. They rushed the wood-busted girl quickly into hospital. Then, taking her by hands and head, placed her face downwards on the bed. The doctors came and cast their eyes upon the seat with some surprise. A surgeon said, "Now mark my word, can anything be more absurd? Did any of you, I implore, see anything like this before?" "Oh yes," cried a student unashamed. "Frequently, sir, but never framed." Thank you.
And that, of course, was Neily Coakley at his best. Now, I'm going to sing a song. It's called Reflections. It was written by a Neily Carroll, who used to live here in Mullinahorna, I don't know how many years ago, I suppose 70 or 80, maybe up to 100 years ago. And he wrote this song, and it goes like this. The summertime brings back to me the days when I was young, and strewn with flowers again I see the fields I've played among, where breezes soft through ivy run, for ancient glory sigh, and Moshera in majesty leans back against the sky. How pleasant 'twas at Mama Cross to view on either side to Hallow's undulated plains, or Musgrave's meadows wide, where skylarks' mirthful melodies are filling all the air, and honeybees are humming o'er the heather blossom fair. How oft times to soothe my soul I'd wander if I could along that narrow winding road around by Lucian's wood, and there in silent solitude I'd sit by thee a wee, where gushing springs are starting off their journey to the sea. Along its banks I'd gladly stray to pluck the flowers again, where once I was afraid I'd meet the fairies in the glen, where every stone is known to me, and every nook and ridge, from Monabowl to Powlamook, and down by Sheehan's Bridge. How dear 'twould be to see again old comrades that I knew. We used to meet at Monaflook and dance the whole night through. The hours flew by on angels' wings o'er happy girls and boys, and no one yet has thought to place a tax upon their joys. When memory with magic flight goes back across those years, my heart is feeling heavy, and I'm lonesome unto tears, for faces that are missing still my thoughts linger o'er. A homestead once, a haven that is home to me no more. That's it. Patrick has a couple of stories now to tell about when he was going to work when money was scarce. He used to go to work in Austin, Cambridge. So we want to hear all about this now.
I gotta have my man here with me now. We've travelled for long years together. But one morning, anyway, to the Monday morning. Bertie had a new car and at the time in Aston, Cambridge. I was the number of it. Anyway, we were down below Cottage Lane waiting for Bertie to come down. Jerry pulled in his Morris Mother below 20 yards below it, and we waited for Bertie. Bertie arrived in due course, and here. I will put in that car, says Jerry to Bertie. I have, just full. One eye closed and he looked at it, just full, he said. Yeah. We got our lunch box in the back, and after we 3 of us sat in, 2 of us sat in, and Bertie took off with the car. Going great, it was we had 45 to 50 miles an hour going through Bandagreen here. On for Carrigella, and we were in about 20 or 25 yards of Annigan, her cross. No, that was the last go down, another drop. And there we were, about, I suppose we were 5 miles from work at the time. We were working up in Knocknagowan. But we got that, some fellow came out, Oren Sullivan, God be merciful for me, came out, and I'll take you to work, he said. So he took us all to Knocknagowan. And Bertie came on down to Crowley's for a gallon of petrol, and that, I think he brought us home in the evening. I don't know if he did or not, but we had some job days with him, surely.
What about the one with the sledge? How about the hatchet, is it?
That was the day that himself and Jerry were fencing. So Bertie, the one eye closed and he drew. This man would look at that, he had his hand attack coming home.
My hand is still swallowing. We're another evening, then we're all in chapel. We're chapel, very walking somewhere. That he ran out of petrol and he said he'd chance to be on Cappy and Barn, he'd run it down. See what it come up, let it come as fast to him.
I do it.
Yeah. He gave it a good run down for John Coakley's lane, and he said, we'll chance Cappy and Barn. He said, we'll never go as fast as it will. Yeah. Yeah.
Crossroads.
Yeah. I think you stopped him at Jack Hawkins College.
We got a speed bump at Jack Hawkins College about the Saturday. Bulldog, I thought we were dog, get between that and the line of bridge. We went this way across the road. We're up to Cobbler Barn cross the bridge, we stopped at the cross. I have nothing more to say. Have you any story about it, Jack? You worked away back in the...
I did. I went to work about 1963.
You did, yeah. Nursery was your first place, wasn't it?
Nursery was my first place.
Yeah, rough at the time.
Rough at the time.
Conditions bad.
First man I met was Tommy Bradley.
Tommy Bradley, yeah.
The man that you were only
Oh,
one.
that my only man, yeah. He was there.
We used to have a fair crack. Side the nursery, it was very long, hot and
Oh, yeah.
dirty floor.
By God, yes.
So much put all cups down on the floor. And the other there, you'd pick up a pebble and you'd fire it into the cup.
Yeah. Yes. By God, yes. Johnny Connell, the man down at the bank, remember Johnny down at the bank?
I do well.
Yeah, I remember him lose his shoe coming through the gap one morning. Wellington pulled the clear off of him. He bogged down so much in the clay that left one shoe after him.
But there was a man by the name of Paddy Ring in the end.
Paddy Ring with the...
And Johnny Cronin had his cup down the ground here and he'd have been there for his milk, and just when you turn around, this man threw Spillane into the cup before the milk.
Yeah.
And he cut a cup of hot tea and he fired it up and like that. And the man backed. And he said back to him, you missed me. Faith and said, Johnny, I didn't mean to miss you.
My God, yes. There was just a crowd of people there. Every tape.
There was.
Every class.
That was the year the tinker came in.
That was the year the tinker.
And you went back through the nursery with a grand carbon chit-chatting, back-to-back trap and a belt ringing. They all said they were fools, they went out and that year. Oh yes, I met a man that too by the name of Tata.
I should God be for me, he's gone on.
He was.
Yeah. He was born down here.
And he's come up looking for fags over there. And of course, I was young and green from the country.
Yes,
and the town lads are very clever.
They were clever, yeah.
They were, and he got to see me fag away in that day, and he got like that. I stands for it all sometimes in the last winter. When we got in last winter, he said, "Come on, Jack, give me one of your fags and I'll do 2 tomorrow."
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Tomorrow came, but the 2 never came.
No. We had another fellow there too, Timmy Joe, he was driving a tractor, but this is before he went on the tractors. He had a new Coakley at a cycle. But they were persuading one, what they belonged to, one of the huts, that the quicker you go around the turn, that the easier it was to take it.
Yes.
So that was all right, and then we went in the evening. He drove down from Billy Casey's cottage away down for Drumry Cross. I suppose he was probably 35 or 40 going down there. Sure, he had no more hope of taking the cross. He had to go down straight from a crew.
We used to have a great trek to burning the mountains.
Oh, burning.
Yeah.
It was gas sometimes, yeah.
In deep water. And
There was a few points that I come with it. A lot of hard work on it though.
we were one evening here, we both started getting in here. And so we all came to the pub in the evening. Forrester stood. The one we were burning for stood. And we get more pints to Tat in the end. Tat got drunk.
Oh, yeah.
We had to stretch him inside in the trailer here. And we had a man in by the name of Bertie Neil. He was driving the tractor.
Desperate man, huh?
And wherever he used to meet the fall of ground, he used to raise the tractor and the tractor was heel. And Tata was slipping away out, and we tried to pull him in.
They were good shine.
I do well.
And the man he met you.
Yes. How much a part they were living?
How much a party said Jack or in the branch, he said. 2 thumbs are, said Jack. What thumbs, he said. No.
But that was a plan with the lads.
So it was, yeah. It was.
I worked with yourself up here in Mushroom.
You did,
Were
yeah.
you?
You did. So you did all in.
You were a fair man to work with.
Was he crossing?
He was that. He was a great man to work with. Very understanding man.
You used to keep that until he come home in the evening.
I was. And he wanted me dealing with you.
We did. We have 9 cans in Jagwood, have we? We haven't any more to talk about.
No, that whole pile is what?
We spent a lot of time together. We spent
So much for a good bit.
4 years together.
Was he the one man in July?
So we couldn't duck him because I was have to travel with him. If he didn't come and if he didn't come and dinner time, I couldn't go either. No. You know, all the old staff, they're all gone. There's only very few left. Half a dozen people, it was. No, half a dozen. They're all gone. Sorry, man, Mickey Carroll, the longest, I suppose, at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah. Mick Riordan and Peter Yank. That's all is there.
Have the older crowd line.
Let's have the other crowd no more. Denny Carney and Tommy Bradley. Denny Bradley was there, of course. Denny Bradley is there since we're in the middle.
Tim Ring.
Tim Ring.
Started
Tim Ring started around the 60. Oh, it's that.
Dan Crone,
I couldn't talk about what I couldn't. I meant to talk about
yeah.
Easy,
Kathleen Spillane will give us a song. Never stand up and sing away. Sit down. Do sit down there. No. Sing away, sing away. What do I know? Is she ready? Are you ready then?
I go to church on a Sunday. The vows that I make, I break them on Monday. The rest of the week I do as I please. Then come Sunday morning, I pray on my knees. Dear God, I know I'm not worthy, but I need you so. Please won't you hurry and help me turn back on this path I have trod. You will never be sorry, dear God. Each day we read in the papers of the carryings on of some of our neighbours. They're sinning and lying and forgetting their faith. Then they have the nerve to ask, is it late? Dear God, I know I'm not worthy, but I need you so. Please won't you hurry and help me turn back on this path I have trod. You will never be sorry, dear God.